over slightly to the right before heading back onto the racing line to avoid that famous bump into probably the slowest section of any track now, the Lotus Hairpin, as you can say, one of the few corners you take down in first gear, but Calm Koala looking to be already on the button here, on the dot, fired up as he's heading down under the tunnel, I should say, not under the hill, but into another hard braking zone, a little chicane. Watch out for that inside wall, but of course you don't want to be cutting because that could be where you'll see a lot of time penalties here if drivers are to take them. Heading into the swimming pool section, a very high-speed section, but you gotta keep the car under control. That wall comes very quick and very hard if you're not careful. Through into Rascasse now, the final few corners around the final corner now, a little bit of oversteer, but all in all a pretty good lap from the Alpine driver across the line. It's a 1:11.3 to kick off the session here. A very quick lap here around Monaco, as you can see. Drivers will be lapping around the maybe the minute 10s, minute 11s. We've seen some of the drivers close to Division 1 lapping in time trial around the 108s, 109s. But I think here in racing conditions we might see a little bit closer to the 110s, and that's Demorts just breaking that barrier into the 110s, setting a 110.9. We're on board with Nazareth right now. We're riding with him as he's coming around the final corner. Let's see what this first lap time is going to look like. Or he's sets a 110.8, so just inching out the time set by Demorts. So 110.8 from Nazareth, the quickest time on the board here in qualifying. Now, of course, here in Monaco, qualifying is going to be probably it's going to be, I'll be honest, the most important qualifying session here of any Grand Prix, any track, because of course, for those who might know, here in Monaco, it's very, very challenging to overtake, to say the least. I'm speaking out of experience as a driver, as a commentator. We won't see too much overtaking, so it's going to make things much more important here to get the best possible qualifying outcome, and Will doing a great job of that as he snags that provisional pole position, smashing the time by that Nazareth said previously. It's a 110.1, so nearly 7/10 of a second faster than the second quickest time for Will. So he put himself in a great spot here. Irish New Potato taking an invalidation, so he's going to slow down, create a little bit of separation for the car in front of him, and head back into the pits. Aizen, you can see a little bit of a similar situation, but Aizen having no front wing on that car, so he's really going to have to nurse it back to the pits and get that switched. The real DC, meanwhile, in the second Haas, teaming up with Will for this weekend, running a flying lap, so we'll stick with him as he's heading across towards the swimming pool section around the marina. Looking to be pretty good lines there from what I can see, but we'll see what the time is going to look like as soon as he crosses the line. He's got Will behind him, but I think Will might just dive into the pit lane. And as I'm looking at the track quickly, as the real DC sets a 111.1. Looking at the comments, I should say, we've got possibly a wet race coming for the drivers, so this is going to make things even more of a challenge and even more important to get the best qualifying position here, because already Monaco difficult enough as it is, and of course if we're going to add in the weather into a factor, get some wet weather racing, it's going to make things even more challenging for the drivers. So we'll see how this is all going to play out. Now, Irish New Potato coming around for a second lap here, keeps it valid, and it's a 115.7, so it is a banker lap to say the least, a little bit off the pace compared to what we're seeing. Of course, 110s, 111s seem to be the way to go. Or seem to be sort of what the benchmark is for a lot of the drivers. But of course, here around Monaco, it's nothing wrong with just putting a lap time on the board, just getting something set up. Because of course, if you make a mistake, those walls come very close. You can see when we look at the onboard, the runoff areas are essentially non-existent on this circuit. You're essentially on the track or in the wall, so it's very crucial to get at least something on the timing tables here in qualifying, because something is still better than nothing in this qualifying session. But Sophion coming around the final corner. What's his lap time going to be? It's looking to be good. A 1:11.5 up into P7 for the McLaren driver as puts himself into the top 10. Now Hartman, we saw him in Division 4, had a very good run in Division 4, all considered here. Now reserving in the Division 2 race in that Red Bull. We'll see if he can keep up his pace. He was showing a lot of pace in Division 4 from what I was able to see in my limited view from the cockpit of my own Red Bull in Division 4. But as he's going to cross the line here, it's 10th fastest, a 1:11.8. So still a good lap time from Hartman, and just brings himself into the top 10 here in this qualifying session, but still a decent amount of time to go. I think about 10 minutes, or just under 10 minutes to go in this short qualifying session. So Duil leading the timing tables right now, the 1:10.1 seemingly going to be untouched here as he's just starting another lap. Might be looking to improve on that 1:10, see if he can maybe break into the sub-110s, maybe a 1:09 for Zuil. Nazareth on an outlap right now. Well, going to be trying to close that gap, maybe put in a flyer of a lap himself, because of course the top two here in Monaco, they're the top two that are battling for the championship here in Division 2. This is the battle here as we're in round 10, so we're starting to hit we're getting closer and closer to the end of the championship here. We're through our final break weeks here, so it's just going to be go up until the finale in a couple weeks time. But looking at the Drivers' Championship, Zuil is leading the way with 280 points. Nazareth in a bit of a distant second with 207 points, but of course in Monaco anything can happen. All it takes is one mistake from one driver or another, and things can really change here. So Nazareth and Duil both doing what they have to do in this stage of qualifying to maximize their outcome by the end of the race. Now, Duil, as I was mentioning, he does improve on his time, breaks that minute 10 barrier into a minute 9 seconds now to extend that gap for pole position. Over a second now separating P1 and P2. So Zuil definitely came to race here in Monaco, and even looking at the leaderboards and time trial, Zuil, it looks like he put a lot of practice. He's feeling very comfortable here around this circuit, and it's showing here in qualifying. As he's got a 1:09.7 on the timing tables. Now Nazareth, we'll see if he can improve on his time. We'll jump on board with him as he's approaching the swimming pool very close to the wall on the right hand side, but already knocking half a second off of his previous time. So he will be closing that gap up. We'll just see more a matter of how much is he going to be closing this gap up by as he heads towards the line. What's it going to be? It's a 1:10.2, so he really does close it, but still Zuil hanging on to that provisional pole position for the time being. Now D-Mort's down in third, Knight in fourth here in the timing tables. The real DC in a top 5, but you can see very close the times from P3 all the way down. So as the real DC is I thought he was going to be on a lap, but nope, slowing down. Didn't like the way that lap was feeling, so he's probably going to be diving into the pit lane, get those final tweaks done, I should say, and maybe hit the track once again for one last flying lap before the end of the session. So as we're going to ride with Sophion, we've already covered the main battle here between the top two. If I head down the order just a little bit, it is Knight in third in the Drivers' Championship, 189 points. So going to be looking to try to close that gap up to P2 and create a bit more of a separation with VR46 Yarno, who's in fourth in the Drivers' Championship. And you'll notice from what I can see, VR is not here today, so leaving some points possibly on the board. And with Dark rounding out the top 5 in the Drivers' Championship with 152 points, if Dark can get a good showing here, he might be able to leapfrog VR. Oh no, and that's Sophion. Hang on a minute as we can see Sophion hitting the wall very hard through that swimming pool section, and that is the end of his qualifying. So he will at best be starting in P9. A little unfortunate for the McLaren driver, as but it just goes to show the challenge of Monaco. Ooh, and Irish Shoot Potato having a little bit of a tank slapper, maybe trying to see what happened to Sophion, and just that slight little lapse of concentration in the meantime. But thankfully he's able to keep it under control as he was heading through the swimming pool section, gets the lap done, keeps that car in one piece, although I think there was a little bit of a time loss there, so not improving on the lap time. But there you see nothing but a tie remains from what was Sophion's F1 car there, as we saw Lucianoc coming around the final corner. Another Division 4 driver reserving here in Division 2. Now, Lucianoc maybe not having the best of races in Division 4, but of course, if you get a good race here in Division 2, that just makes up for it right then and there. So he's going to be looking to bounce back. He's already gotten some practice here on this track with the Division 4 race, and looking pretty good here. A 1:11.7, just into the top 10, and inching out the time set by Hartman in that Red Bull. So now, of course, jumping back, Duwil back on track here. Purple in Sector 1, a 1/10 of a second faster. So it looks like Duwil might actually improve a little bit more here. He's still got some more in the tank. Thankfully, doesn't get affected by the traffic of the McLaren. Very wisely getting out of the way there. That's what you love to see, especially here in Monaco, where like I said, very difficult to overtake, even more so in qualifying, and the dirty air can be very tricky. Now, it almost looked like he clipped the wall a little bit, no wing damage. Oh, but a big moment there for Duwil, and definitely hits the wall there. Was pushing for that purple lap, was pushing to improve that pole position time, but a little bit too much, and unfortunately, that's the end of the lap attempt from Duwil. And it's showing how difficult this swimming pool section is, especially that corner. You're seeing a lot of drivers here. I think we saw Dark do it. Calm Koala getting out of the way. So here we'll stick with Irish Shoot Potato just to see with his line, because they're seeing a lot of drivers not through this section, but through this corner right over here, just trying to jump that sausage curb a tiny little bit, maximize the line. But you can see it's a bit of a risk-reward type line, where like we saw with Irish Shoot Potato and Duwil, if you nail it, you're flying into the next corner section of Razkaz. But if you don't nail it, you're going into the wall. Best case scenario, it's a bit of a couple tenths of a second loss. Worst case scenario, well, that's the end of your qualifying, or that's the end of your race. So we'll see with that. Of course, Duwil, we saw, ended up somewhere in the middle of that. Some wing damage, the car spinning, but keeps into the session. But as qualifying is dwindling down to its close, not much has changed in the order. Here is Aizen, as we're riding on board with him. He gets a little bit of a tank slapper of its own, trying to get on the power, heading down the hill into the tunnel section. That might affect the lap time just a little bit, but it seems like for now he's committing to the lap. Might still be a little bit quicker. We'll see what it's going to look like as he's approaching the Sector 2 time here. Around the corner, he's 0.3 of a second slower, so he's going to have to try to find a little bit more in Sector 3 if he wants to keep up with this lap. Heading towards Razkaz, the penultimate corner. Now around the final corner, he's committing to it, so feels like he can go faster. And now as he charges towards the line, what's it going to be? It will not be faster. It's a 1:12.8 for Aizen. As you can see, a little bit of a tank slapper. Not too sure if that was just accelerating on the power, just a little bit of frustration there from the Aston Martin driver with these lap times, as he's going to remain in P12 with only Jordan behind him. And Jordan, as he was trying to improve on his lap time, takes that corner just a little bit too tightly, and that's an invalidated lap. So a little unfortunate, as he was 1/10 of a second quicker, albeit maybe some of that might have been helped by that cut. But we'll see. Hartman running a flying lap right now, heading towards the casino, down to the final minutes of qualifying, as Duwil coming around the final corner, looking to improve one last time. Nazareth, meanwhile, coming through the swimming pool, heading towards Razkaz, slowing that car down. I think he's going to go for one more flying lap, getting those final preparations set and now getting on the power. So it's going to come down to this. D-Mort's a little bit of the same deal, had an invalidation, so we'll be going one more time. Real DC, we saw just clipping the wall there. So he's going to be able to go again if that front wing remained undamaged, which it looks like it does. Knight, I think he's probably on a flying lap right now, so we'll stick with Knight. Or actually, I'll switch over to Hartmix. He's probably going to be the next driver to cross the line. D-Mort's diving into the pits, so he had enough. Nazareth, he's out of this qualifying session with Hartman diving into the pits, so will not be improving. Azen's done. D-Mort's is over and done with, like we said. Knight going purple in Sector 2, so he's looking to be on a much faster lap. We'll see if he can improve on that P5 that he's got on the board. Heading towards the line. It's looking to be a good lap across the line. Yes, he does. Jumps up to P3 goes Knight, so a good lap time there. Let's see who is next to cross. Zuwil with a 109.5, so just flexing the muscles of that Haas, flexing his muscles a little bit there as he just extends that pole position, which already looks to be his very comfortably. Just looking about nearly 0.6 of a second. Well, exactly 0.6 of a second, or was exactly 0.6 of a second, as Irish Potato snags that P2, snags that front row of the grid away from Nazareth there. Pulls the lap time when he needs to, and now we'll see what the real DC can do as he's crossing the line. It was a 110.9, not too sure where that brings them, but that is going to bring us to the end of this short qualifying session. So a bit of an exciting qualifying there. It looks like you can see Zuwil. He's going to be the driver to beat, the driver to look out for. He's got a 109.5, the only driver to break into the sub 110s. Irish Potato and Nazareth, though, they came close. Irish Potato, though, he put that lap time in right at the end of the session when it mattered most, so he snags P2 with that 110.136, but still half a second behind Zuwil. With Nazareth did what he had to do, just couldn't quite get that lap time in at the end of the session when the track was at its quickest, exactly 0.6 of a second behind in P3. Knight in 4th, and D-Mort's in the Red Bull, rounding out the top 5. Real DC, Darkcom, Koala, Sophion rounding out the top 10 there, rounding out a little bit of the rest of the field. I'm not too sure if that's the top 10, but we'll go through the order one more time as we're going to go through the formation lap. No worries about that. But qualifying coming to a close, and if those who remember, those who have access to the chat, there you have it. We'll say the easy part of this track is over and done with. Qualifying in the dries, all but said and done. And here we are into the race. It is raining, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be, on the very least, on those intermediate tires. Going to be a little bit more of a challenge for a lot of these drivers here, as they're getting the final setup preparations up and ready to go, figuring out what they want to do with the fuel. I think the tire strats are going to be relatively straightforward. Just put on a set of intermediate tires and just drive. Once they start falling off the cliff, take a pit stop here. And of course, as it always is in Monaco, stay out of the wall. And that's it's going to be you're going to live or die here in Monaco by staying out of the wall, or lack thereof. Now, drivers, I hope they packed an extra front wing just in case with their lunches, because of course I'm sure we will be seeing a couple pit stops here with some wing changes. But of course, it just brings out the extra concentration, the extra challenge of those who can keep it clean, keep that nose clean, take that very standard one stop, probably intermediate to intermediates to the end of the race. They're going to be in a great position, and we could see a bit of a surprise podium here, with maybe some drivers starting near the back of the field, keeping their nose clean, all the while drivers near the front pushing a little bit more, running into the walls, having to lose that extra time, taking a wing change. And that, like I said, speaking out of experience, myself in Division 4, that was the strategy for myself, and it paid dividends here, as I got a pretty good finish, I should say. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty happy with the finish I got there. But enough about enough about my race in Division 4. You can check that out after this race here in Division 2, because we're jumping into the formation lap and about to get started here for the race. So Duwill leading us through the formation lap here. If I take a look at the tire choice, unsurprisingly, everybody on those intermediate tires. Nobody really going for a gamble on the full wets, and I don't blame them. I'm seeing absolutely zero standing water. Just the track looks wet. The rain is still falling. It's prime intermediate tire conditions here right now in Monaco. But we'll see how everything plays out as this race continues. But as Duwill, he's leading us through the formation lap here, going to be starting from pole position. The driver to beat, the driver to catch up on. Irish Potato in second, like we mentioned. He's going to be the main competitor, with, of course, Nazareth in third. He's going to be really looking for a launch off the start, try to get ahead as quick as possible. Knight in fourth on that second row of the grid, so a good qualifying position for Knight in the Alpine, with Duwill right behind here in P5. Real DC in sixth, Dark in seventh, and Comp Koala in eighth. Although they're back on the start-finish straight, back on the grid, they must have made a little bit of contact somewhere along the way. They're not disqualified from the full session. They're just having to not get some heat in those tires, which could put them at a disadvantage. Next, you've got Sophion in ninth, with Lucianok in 10th. The two McLarens starting right next to each other on row 5. So we'll see if maybe they can possibly work together to bring both those cars a little bit further up the field. Hartman just outside of the top 10 in 11th. Aizen in 12th, and Jordan rounding out the grid in P13. So a lot of these drivers near the back of the field are going to have their work cut out for them. But of course, your race can possibly be won or lost here in the first race. But more than likely, you got to be cautious here going into turn 1. We've heard it numerous times, but I just love to say it. Drivers, no heroics into Sandoval, please, as we're taking to the grid, awaiting the cue to go. And let's do it, ladies and gentlemen. Up to 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 red lights. And the lights are off, and we are racing here in Monaco. So it looks to be a bit of a cautious start from a lot of the drivers as they're heading down into turn 1. Nazareth already gaining a position up into P2. You can see going side by side was Irish Potato and Knight. That was very close to the wall here, but it looks like everybody making it through relatively cleanly through into turn 1. Sophion gaining a position as Com Koala falls down into P8, but Duwill got a good start. He's leading, but Nazareth, you can see, very close behind, did exactly what he had to do off the start for his championship, get ahead of Irish Potato, who actually really did not have a good start, down in 4th now, as Knight is up into 3rd. I didn't even see that overtake happen, but Knight on a charge here on those intermediates, looking to keep up with the top 2. Like I said, Irish Potato in 4th. D-Mort's rounding out the top 5 here. But Duwill, he is on a run already with a 2.5 gap here. He's definitely come to race here in Monaco, and he is feeling good, but a little bit of a funky line here. Knight and New Potato battling it out, as you saw New Potato taking a very funky line, not making that corner, and he's going to have to give that position back, which he does very promptly. And already the time penalties are starting to fall. Irish New Potato takes one. I think Sophion took one, and Aizen taking one as well, as they're struggling to get that car slowed down in these conditions. As Aizen, he's out of this Grand Prix very early on through the swimming pool section, just losing the car, I believe, and that's the end of his race. D-Mort's, meanwhile, getting ahead of Irish Potato, who really seems to be struggling, but gonna try to fight back into turn 1, on board with them, but just D-Mort's finding the traction around the outside. And now you can see the real DC putting a little bit of pressure, just did not quite have enough pace going up the hill into the casino section. So Irish Potato hanging on to that P5, but for the Mercedes driver, as he nearly loses the back end there. He's not trending in the right direction. He's heading down the order rather than going up now. As we've got another yellow flag here. That's, oh no, Luciano having a moment as he hits the wall. He needs to get that car around as quick as possible. He's going to have to dive into the pits and get that front wing changed. That just looks like a front wing change there. But unfortunately, Aizen's race not ending the way he wanted, lasting about 2/3 of a lap, before that brought to the end of his Grand Prix. So down to 12 runners. No safety car coming out, though, as they were able to get that car cleared out just in time before we head back towards the swimming pool section. Knight, though, oh no, as Knight goes for a little bit of a spin there. I saw they were battling with Nazareth, but unfortunately we missed the incident. Not too sure what happened there, but he's down in P7 as he just comes out ahead of his teammate and right behind Sophion. Doesn't look like there's any damage to the Alpine, though, as he can continue onwards, as now more penalties are starting to fall here. But Will, he's flying here on this track. Nazareth starting to create a little bit of a gap now to Demorts now, who's in third, who's starting to be pressured by Irish New Potato, who was a bit of a benefactor heading up into P4. Real DC rounding out the top 5. Beacon C Knight charging down, heading down the inside of Sophion. Can he get the move done? In the inside line, it's gonna be close. He gets the overtake done as he heads into the Lotus hairpin here, the slowest section of the track, but the overtake was already done and dusted, so back onto the racing line goes the Alpine driver, and it continues on his way, charging, must be with a vengeance now to regain those positions, as next up he's going to have to close up a 2.5 second gap to the Real DC. All the while, Hartman trying to keep up with Sophion. He's just within a second, but he's got Com Koala a little bit further behind, but Com Koala having to slow down as he, I think, not too sure if he missed the braking point or thought about going for an overtake, but hits the wall there a corner later, as that might be some wing damage, and you can see struggling to keep that car on the track there. That's a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings, as that is not going to benefit him, as yep, he is going to have to dive into the pits, get that wing changed, as I'm sure we'll see a couple more times here from a few drivers in Monaco. But like I said, it's Will already on a lap 4. He's the driver to beat, and he's got a nice little cushion, and just going faster and faster here on those intermediates. He's feeling comfortable in that Haas, and it's showing, as Nazareth, he's trying to keep up as best as he can, but that gap just doesn't seem to be closing. If anything, it's staying consistent. Now you can see back to this battle here. We'll give Knight a little bit more love as he's catching right back up to the Real DC. That 2.5 second gap that we saw about a lap ago is down to half a second, as I think the Real DC may be struggling a little bit here in these intermediates. But we'll see when, if and when Knight can get the overtake done. It's one thing to catch, it's another to overtake here around Monaco, especially, as of course the famed Murray Walker would love to say, and as I love to say, at the very least in his homage, but it's true here in Monaco. It's such a difficult track to get ahead. Normally you do have a little bit of help from DRS down the start-finish straight, as you can see Lucianoc diving into the pits. He's gonna have to get another wing change here, but normally we have DRS down the straight here, but in these rainy conditions, as you can see, it's not active. We're not getting DRS. It's going to rely on pure driver pace, which is making things a little bit more challenging here for a lot of the drivers. And you can see Dark behind Hartman, who clips the wall just a little bit into turn 1 into Sandoval. Let's take a look. That front wing looks to be intact. Very crucial, as he got the car slowed down just enough. Hartman, though, on the meanwhile, into the casino section. He clips the wall. He's still going to be battling it out, but oh, you can see how difficult that is. Losing the back end, and Dark trying to launch one down the inside, or down the outside I should say, but just not enough track room. But he might be able to go down the inside as Hartman just leaves that door wide open. But I think Dark was a little caught off guard by that and just wasn't able to capitalize a little bit. But you can see how challenging that is for Hartman with that broken front wing. As, Sophion, I think we just saw maybe clipping the wall there, as now Dark getting ahead. That might have been Hartman, actually, that we saw as I was going through. Oh, he's got no front wing. That is very much so going to be a lengthy pit stop for Hartman here, as now Dark gets ahead. Jordan gets ahead as well. Sophion right on the back of Knight now, as I heard from the pit wall. That's going to be an early pit stop. There must have been a little bit of a moment there. Maybe some contact, maybe a little bit of a hit in the wall. Not too sure what happened, but We heard the frustration from the pit wall there from the Alpine driver as he's taken a bit of a lengthy pit stop getting that wing changed. But here we are back on lap 6. Another little sit rep Zuwil. That gap is just growing lap after lap. It's down to 3.8 seconds. Essentially a 4-second gap now between Zuwil and Nazareth. Demorts, though, doing a good job of sticking behind Nazareth and keeping up. And that's... Oh, actually, I thought the Red Bull had a little bit of an end plate missing, but no, a little bit of a visual, not a visual glitch, but playing with me a little bit here are the visuals of that end plate. I think the white Red Bull is taking me for a turn here. As Irish and Potato taking a 3-second time penalty that will be added on to his time, and you can see they're starting to accumulate here. His drivers are starting to push, but Irish and Potato a purple sector 2, so we think he's starting to feel a little bit more comfortable on these intermediate tires after getting a couple laps into them, which tends to be the case here in this wet weather type running. Zuwil, though, he's on a flyer, sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far, and that's that. I mean, that's that, as he's going to extend his gap. Meanwhile, Demort, he's starting to really feel comfortable here, right along the back of Nazareth, riding on board with the Red Bull driver, as he's going to have to really pick and choose his moments. And you can see just how difficult it is to overtake. A little bit of different lines there between Nazareth and Demorts. Nazareth, he's looking to avoid that bump, the famous bump. As you saw, he went to the right and quickly back over to the left as a yellow flag in Sector 3. Oh no, that might be Lucianac again having another moment as he's heading into the pit lane, I believe, or it looks like that is the case. Or minimally just letting the drivers through. But yes, does take a pit stop here. But now Demort's back here, still trying to close up to Nazareth. Just can't quite seem to keep up here. Struggling in that dirty air of the AlphaTauri that's ahead of him, but we'll see if he can maybe make it work around the final corner. All he needs is just a slightly better acceleration. Oh, a little bit of a tank slapper there as you can see fighting the car, fighting that dirty air through around the final corner. Now, can he get the acceleration he needs? Not quite, as you can see Nazareth just accelerating a little bit quicker, and that gap is starting to grow. Irish Potato, though, he's taking a pit stop, and he's going to have to get a wing change here. A new set of intermediate tires, a new wing change, and that's going to be Irish Potato falling down the order just a little bit more. We'll see where he's going to end up as he leaves the pit lane. Is Jordan going to be able to get ahead of him? Remember, Jordan started from the back of the grid, and I was a little bit worried about Jordan's pace here on track, but I think it might have been a calculated move from Jordan. Start in the back, avoid the craziness of lap 1, let drivers ahead make a mistake, and just gain positions just like what he did on Irish Potato. And crucially, Knight got ahead of the Mercedes driver as well, so you can see how much time is lost when you have to change that front wing. As Knight now up into P7. Jordan, though, from starting all the way down in P13, well, he's up into P6, doing some good work for him. He does have a lot of clean air ahead of him. He's just going to have to close a 14-second gap to catch up to Sophion, who's trying to keep up with the real DC as best as he can, but you can see it's a 1.5-second gap, but it doesn't look like it's truly closing here in this stage of the race. But we'll have to see how things are going to play out as this race plays along. But already here, 8 to 9 laps into this Grand Prix, you're seeing the challenge of Monaco. You're seeing the difficulty. If you weren't aware of how challenging this track is, you're already seeing it here. And just when you ride on board, look at it. Look at how close the walls are. You're essentially, like I was saying in qualifying, you're on track or you're in the wall. It's one or the other. It's not like your traditional circuits where you've got some runoffs that you can essentially save yourself, as we've got a yellow flag here. What is going on? Oh, and that's for Lucianoc, who once again has no front wing. Not ideal for Lucianoc, not having the race he was hoping. I think really feeling the challenge of these weather. And oh no, that's Nazareth out of this Grand Prix. What happened to Nazareth? He's Oh, we'll see here with the real DC approaching. A costly mistake for Nazareth. I think he might have just hit the wall on his own, but for Nazareth, that's the end of his race. It's a yellow flag. Is it going to bring out a safety car? I don't think so. If it was, I think it would have been out now already, as Jordan's slowing up, allowing Knight to go through. I think Jordan knows the pace Knight has. We saw the fastest laps of the Grand Prix there. I think Jordan knows it's not a driver he wants to fight with. They're running different strategies, and crucially, does Jordan have? He's just going very slow. What? I'm not too sure what's going on with the AlphaTauri of Jordan, because that's both Knight and Irish Potato that he let through. Dark and Calm Koala had a little bit of a battle, and Dark gets ahead, seemingly at that same spot that Nazareth was out of. So Dark doing some good job. Calm Koala, he's got no front wing on that Alpine, so that's going to be a pit stop here. But Knight back up into P5, and he is flying. He is a man on a mission. He is on a vengeance tour here. He's kicking butt and taking names here as he's charging up the field, setting those fastest laps, and he's saying, "Do Will, you've got pace, but you know what? I've got more pace here. I'm going to take these fastest laps. I'm going to charge around the track, and you know what? You better watch out, because it's only lap 10 out of 39. Wink, wink, I'm catching up to you, whether you like it or not." And knowing that he's got drivers ahead that are going to have to take pit stops here, he might be able to close up a little bit more here on those slightly fresher set of intermediate tires. But, I mean, of course, Will, he's just crossing the line to start lap 11, so it's still going to be a little bit of a challenge here as Knight just coming through that chicane. But you can see the pace that the Alpine has, as Irish Potato taking a 3-second time penalty here, and they're really starting to fall. These penalties, only 4 drivers remaining here on the track that have yet to take penalties. Will, Demort's the top 2, and they're just doing what they have to do. Jordan also not taking a penalty, and Luciano. What happened there? That was Calm Koala. I think he had a big moment as... and that's the end of Calm Koala's race. Right as we switch over to it, he had no front wing, and that's where we saw him spun around, trying to take the corner. But, of course, with no front wing, you've got 0 downforce, and it's going to bring out another yellow flag. But very crucially, no safety car, no virtual safety car, and it almost looks like here in Monaco, those safety cars are just non-existent. I could have sworn we would have seen one by now, but all the better as we just get to continue racing here. We're moving on forward here, as unfortunately for Calm Koala, he was saying he put in a lot of practice here in Monaco. He was feeling good. But of course, I think maybe the extra challenge, the extra wrench of the weather here, of the rain, just proved to be a lot for Calm Koala, as unfortunately that's the end of his Monaco Grand Prix, as he's currently in 10th, but going to end up possibly in P11 here once Luciano catches up, as he's taking another pit stop here, getting a wing change. Luciano not having the race he was hoping for, but I think he's looking to finish, gonna snag a couple points here in the Constructors' Championship, because of course, in the situation we're in here, you finish the Grand Prix and you get points here. And of course, as much as it might not be ideal to race against gaps and just race essentially run time trials in a Grand Prix, points are points at the end of the day. And with the battles in the Drivers' Championship, with the Constructors' Championship getting down to the nitty-gritty, starting to get to the end here, races like this could just make or break things in the Constructors, in the Championship, with your main rivals. So we'll see how things are all playing out, but you can see now here as the gaps have truly started to form. The closest battle here on the track is Sophion chasing down the real DC, as the McLaren driver is in 4th, just a second behind, as he's really trying to bide his time. He's really trying to make this overtake work as best as he can. The real DC, though, he's trying to hang on to that podium. They're both running a similar tire strategy, so it's really just going to come down to, I think it might just come down to, well, of course, A, who can keep their nose clean for longer, and or B, who can get the better strategy. Because I think at this point, if you're Sophion, as much as in a normal track, you might want to be matching pit stops with the driver ahead. Here in Monaco, you're not really going to want to do that, because even if you match, you're going to end up in the exact same situation, and 100% you're not going to be able to overtake because it's just so challenging. You got to hope for a mistake to just get the opportunity to overtake. So I think between these two drivers, it's going to come down to a pit stop battle. As you can see Irish Potato starting to close up tonight as he pit 2 laps later here. And you're seeing a slight little pace difference here, 1.4 seconds behind. It's close, but we'll see. We'll have to keep an eye out on that battle. But these are the two that are closest on track. Everybody else running gaps, racing against each other. But as Duwil crosses the line to start lap 14, he's honestly, for Duwil, he's just got to not make a mistake, because he can, at this point, possibly just nurse that car home and snag that top step of the podium if he can keep his nose clean. And he's done a great job of it so far. He's just running his own race here. But of course, he still has a lot of laps to go. And we've got a yellow flag in Sector 3. I think that might be from Lucianok again, just letting some lapped cars go through, as he's a couple laps behind. Knight setting another fastest lap of the Grand Prix. You can see that gap now between himself and Irish Potato has grown back. So Knight conserving a little bit here, a few laps, but now back on the pace, closing that gap up. And Sophion being stuck behind the real DC, that might benefit Knight just a little bit to be able to close that 10-second gap up just a little bit. Given Knight does have some clean air, and he can push just a little bit more compared to Sophion, who's stuck battling in this dirty air. So we'll see how that is going to work out. But Sophion closing that gap up down to under a second now here between himself and the real DC. If we switch over, they both have 3 seconds of penalties. Essentially all the drivers who have penalties have 3 seconds, other than Irish New Potato, who's up to a whopping 9 seconds already. So not ideal for the Mercedes driver of New Potato, who might lose a couple positions here if he's not careful, and if these gaps get to close. And Hartman with 6 seconds so far, that will be added to his time. Ooh, but you can see Sophion, as we're riding on board with them, he's really battling he's really struggling for grip here. He's battling the car, and it just goes to show how difficult, how challenging these conditions are here. It's lap 15 out of 39. The top 2 and even the top 3 have remained unchanged as they're just running their own race. But this is the battle to see. Sophion on the real DC. They're chasing down. This gap is slowly closing up, 0.7 of a second. But for Sophion, I think he's going to want to get close, but I mean, the real DC just doing what he has to do, getting those those corner exits, the crucial corner exit. He's nailing them here, and just like that one, where if the real DC had a little bit of a tank slapper, that could be what Sophion needs to get ahead. But the real DC, as much as he might be struggling a little bit through some of the corners, he needs to get. He is nailing them lap after lap to keep that gap to right around a second and to keep Sophion behind. But if you are Sophion in P4, you just gotta not let up. You just gotta hope that there's a mistake that's gonna happen. Look at how close he is now, half a second. This could be the opportunity. Ooh, a little bit of fighting the car there, but you can see much closer now. Is he gonna do it into Saint-Devote? I don't think so. As no, just a little bit too far out, and this is where DRS could be so much more beneficial, as an Irish Potato now, he's starting to get on a run. He sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix here, as he's trying to keep that gap up to Knight. But they're both of these drivers, Knight and New Potato, closing up to Sophion. The gap was around 10 seconds a couple laps ago. 7.1 now, as these two drivers are really starting to close up now. So this 2-car battle could turn into a 4-car battle in a couple laps time. So we'll keep an eye out on that once it's brewing, and especially with when we go back to the tire difference here. So Theon, the real DC, they haven't taken a pit stop yet. They're on 15-lap-old intermediate tires. Knight, meanwhile, on 10-lap-old intermediates, and Irish Potato on 8-lap-old intermediates. Oh, but look at this. So Theon right up behind, nearly up to the rear diffuser. This could be an opportunity here as Dark getting ahead of Jordan here. As Jordan really, he's trying to run his own race here, but doesn't really seem to be battling all that much. That AlphaTauri just not showing nearly as much pace as some of the other cars on the track here for Jordan. So I think he's just trying to get out of the way, and he's gonna stick to his race, do what he can, and just try to finish here with that car in one piece and snag the points. But here you can see Sophion, he came close, but once again, like I was mentioning a couple laps ago, and I'm just gonna repeat myself here, the real DC, he's nailing those corner exits he has to, that lead into the longer straights, that lead into the overtaking opportunities, and honestly, that's all he needs to do here. And he's doing that to perfection. More yellow flags. That looks to be a little bit further down in the field, as it looks to be Lucianok taking another pit stop. The struggles continue for Lucianok in that McLaren, as I believe that's going to be another front wing change, but he's still sticking with it. He's still going at it here, and I love to see that. It's a tough race out here in Monaco, but you finish, you snag those points, you take it in stride, and you know, at the end of the day, it's still better than those who I mean, get no points here in the championship. But we're seeing here still on this battle. I know we've been watching this battle for a better part of the race here, but this is the closest battle on track. But you can see Sophion, there we go, and this is going to start. I think maybe a chain of events here a little bit. We might start seeing a little bit more action. Sophion taking a pit stop. I think he's realizing, you know what? I'm not going to get ahead of the real DC on track. It's not going to happen. The real DC has been consistent with nailing the exits he needs to. So Sophion, he's going to pit for a fresh set of intermediate tires, take that clean air here. As you can see, he's leaving the pits, and look at this, he's got nobody in front of him. Irish Potato 13 seconds ahead, closest driver ahead. Dark 30 seconds behind, closest driver behind. So Sophion, he's just going to push here on those fresh intermediate tires. He's going to try to just close the gap up, so when the real DC does take a pit stop, he can maybe take that pit stop behind. And this is the pit strategy that I was talking about a little bit earlier here, that we're going to start seeing in Monaco. Rather than trying to overtake on track, we're going to try to overtake with the quicker pit stops. So now we'll have to see, is the real DC going to react and take a pit stop at the end of this lap, or is he going to maybe try to continue, go for an overcut here, if he's still feeling comfortable on those 17-lap-old intermediate tires. Knight, meanwhile, that gap is closing right back up, a second and a half here, and in what was similarly the same spot that Sophion was, there is Knight. But real DC, he noticed Sophion took a pit stop, so he's going to pit himself as well. So Knight and New Potato continue onwards, but the key here is let's just jump on board with Sophion. He's coming around Razcast. Here's the real DC just leaving the pit box now. It's going to be close. You can see the pushing that Sophion's going to do. He's open. He's using his ERS. It's going to be close. There you go. Is he going to get the overtake done? Through into Sandoval is close. No, he doesn't. But wait a minute. Hang on the exit of turn one. They're side by side. No Lance Stroll footage for us here as Sophion gets the overtake done on the exit of turn one, and that is Sophion pulling that undercut to perfection, getting ahead of the real DC. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the power of the undercut. That is the power of the pit stop strategy. Fantastic that we actually got to see the overtake here on track. Fret not, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not gonna flash some Lance Stroll graphic in front of you right for the one overtake into the track. I'm not that mean here, as much as I like to be, or I could be, but good move from Sophion. Fantastic, as now you can see it. Demorts taking a pit stop, using the opportunity to just check in with the chat. And speaking of the chat, I'll check in myself here as we'll switch. We'll just jump on board very quickly with our Shoot Potato, and there goes Knight ahead of Demorts as that much early pit stop seemed to work out for him. Now Knight on 14 lap old tires, he's up into P2. Will still needs to pit, but Knight, like I was saying, he's flying in that Alpine, and he has been ever since he took that pit stop. But now, if he can keep Demorts behind, he's got some clean air ahead, and he can try to chip away at that 30-second gap that Will has built himself here on track. But now you've got our Shoot Potato. It didn't quite work out too well for him. Meanwhile, the real DC taking another pit stop here, as I think he might have had a little bit of a moment clipping the wall, getting that front wing changed here. But he's leaving the track. Jordan taking his scheduled pit stop. Is he gonna have to take a wing change? No, he's just taking a tire. He's taking a tire change. So Jordan's sticking to his strategy of just keeping his nose clean, and it takes that scheduled pit stop. Going to be coming out of the pits and will remain in P8. But Knight now up into second, as he's got the lap car of Lucianoc ahead of him here. Will 34 seconds ahead, as he's going to try to really extend those intermediate tires. We'll see. I mean, if Will really wants to, he could in theory take them the full 39 laps, but I really don't think they're going to be all that comfortable if he does do that. Irish Potato, oh, he's got a pit for a wing change. Oh, that's very unfortunate for Irish Potato, as he's essentially finds himself out of this battle. Demorts, meanwhile, he's in P3, chasing down Knight, but I think it's going to take him maybe a lap or two just to get some the temperature into those intermediate tires before he can truly start to close up, truly start to battle. Knight, meanwhile, he's still setting purple sector times here. He was purple in Sector 1, but crucially, that gap between himself and Will is still sitting right around 34 seconds. So we'll have to keep an eye out on that to see if it's going to close. But it's definitely going to close now, as Will taking a scheduled pit stop. And who is that? Oh, I believe that's Lucianoc. And Lucianoc, unfortunately, he's out of this Grand Prix, as that's going to bring out a yellow flag. We'll jump on board this teammate, I think just on the exit of that corner right there, putting a little bit too much power on the car, losing the back end into the wall. And for Lucianoc, it's a little bit of a disappointing end to what was a frustrating Grand Prix for him here in reserving in Division 2. But that's the end of his struggles, as he is out of this Grand Prix. So 9 drivers remaining here. Lap 22 out of 39. Looking at the leaders, this gap now between Knight and Will is down to 14 seconds. But of course, Will is on now a much fresher set of intermediate tires. So we'll see how this is going to play out here, as crucially the gap is closing still. 14 seconds flat is the gap right now, compared to what I believe was about 14.5 just a little bit ago. But we're seeing now Will, he's got that clean air ahead. He's starting to feel these new tires a little bit. So we'll see if the gap is going to close or if it's going to grow here between the top 2 drivers here that were on board with. Demorts, though, on his fresher set of intermediate tires. He's still trying to keep up with Knight, but Knight doing a good job of keeping that gap consistent here between P2 and P3. Like I mentioned, Will about to cross the line, approaching the end of lap 22. We're starting to creep up towards the end of the race here, which has been pretty good so far. Not so much in terms of the overtaking like we like to see in traditional circuits, but the pit stop strategies have really come out here in this midway point of the race. We saw Knight taking that very early pit stop. He had that wing change he had to do, if we remember, a little bit earlier on in this race, but he's made that work for him, and up into P2, and we saw the likes of I believe it was Sophion and the real DC that were having a nice little battle. That came down to pit stop strategies, but unfortunately the real DC was right behind, but had to take another wing change here. Irish New Potato, oh no, he's got no front wings, so that's going to be an extended pit stop for the Mercedes driver, and he's taken a couple here so far this afternoon, in this rainy afternoon here in Monaco. So another one here to add to Irish Potato. Now let's see, is the real DC. He's getting down the start-finish straight. I think he's going to be well ahead of Nude Potato now, as he heads into Sandoval. Up into P6 goes the Haas driver, as he's still trying to chase down Dark for that top 5. And of course, you're seeing the gap starting to form here between all the drivers on the grid, as we could come to expect here in Monaco. Drivers running at different paces, nursing the car, running the different tire strategies. But of course, Demort's running in P3, the closest gap here on track, hovering around 2 to 3 seconds. But it looks like Knight, as much as Duwill is extending that gap between himself and Knight. Knight is crucially extending that gap between himself and Demorts ever so slightly here. But about 15 laps to go in this Grand Prix. We've got 9 drivers remaining in this race, as we saw Aizen was out very early on, didn't make it too far in the race. Nazareth had a little bit of a moment as he was running in P3 when he had his mistake just on the exit of the tunnel. A little unfortunate. Calm Koala, he was feeling confident, but of course Monaco can get the best of even the most confident drivers here. As we saw Calm Koala taking some wing damage and just couldn't get that car around. Real DC getting ahead now as Sophion exits the pits. Nude Potato exiting, overtaking Dark, as Dark had to take a pit stop to put on a fresh set of boots here. But here we go, heading back to the battle here. Oh, look at this! It's Real DC and Sophion. They meet again here on track, but this time the roles are reversed. This time it's the Haas driver who's going to try to get ahead of the McLaren driver, and now the advantage goes to Sophion. So of course that Sophion, he's on a fresh set of tires here, crucially enough. So I think it looks like he pit for a new set of tires, but still got ahead of the Real DC, who had to take that extra pit stop here. So all in all, that undercut that I was talking about all those laps ago still worked out well for Sophion, as he's still ahead in P4. But I think it's going to be a little bit much to try to keep up to catch up to Demorts, as P3 and P2, they're going through the Lotus hairpin here on lap 25, as they're all trying to chase Duwill, who's heading into the end of Sector 2, into Sector 3, into the swimming pool section. As Duwill, we haven't given him much love here on the stream, but you can see he's just doing what he has to do. He's shown the confidence right from the get-go, and you can see how that's working out for him. He took pole position, led the race essentially from beginning up until now, and has driven a near perfect race of Monaco. But of course, now that I'm saying that, I'm gonna knock on wood quickly, just so I don't accidentally create a commentator's curse for Duwill. And if I do, I'm sorry, je m'excuse, but hopefully it doesn't get to that there. I think Duwill is showing enough pace that he can hopefully be above the commentator's curse. But we'll see how that plays out. Maybe it's all part of my my master plan to bring a little bit more racing action here for everybody watching at home. As I'm giving myself a little bit of a laugh. But here, speaking of racing action, oh, we've got yellow flags here. That's just Jordan seeing the blue flags and letting these drivers through. Demorts, though, he's closing up to Knight, and I think those intermediate tires that Knight has are slowly starting to fall off a little bit compared to Demorts' tires that are still very much so in peak performance range and can still run in peak performance range for quite a few laps now here. With my experience with those intermediate tires. But I think at this point, I'm not too sure if Knight is going to want to take another pit stop here. I mean, he might, but at this point, track position is much more valuable than than taking that pit stop. But very crucially, though, when you look at P4, Sophion is 49 seconds behind Demort. So even if Knight was to take a pit stop to put on a new set of tires, I think he's still only going to be, he would still only come out in P3 behind Demort's. But of course, P2 is still much better than P3 here on any track. Given counting and positions, of course, as I'm gonna go for the obvious one here. Even if I'm gonna try to take a look at the championship, well, actually, it might not mean too much. Demort's down in P9 in the Drivers' Championship. Knight up into P3, but of course Knight wants to extend that gap between himself and VR46 Yarno, who's not racing, and of course he wants to close that gap up to Nazareth. Knight wants that P2 in the championship here, and with Nazareth DNFing, getting 0 points. If Knight gets a P2, it's not going to be maximum points. But if I'm looking at the gap here, 99, it'll be more than enough to leapfrog Nazareth to go up into P2. Do-Will, though, meanwhile, barring some crazy moments here, I think Do-Will is very much so looking poised to extend that already big lead in the Drivers' Championship here. But you can see, oh, look at this, Irish Root Potato right behind the real DC as Sophion's able to get ahead. We might actually get an overtake here on track. A yellow flag a little bit further behind as I'm not too sure what that was for, just drivers going a little bit slow. That could just be, I think that was Do-Will just approaching more of the field, more lap cars. So those lap cars slowing down, not getting in the way. But here we go. Is Irish Potato going to go for it? He thought about going down the inside, but no, just unable to get it done. I thought he had enough pace, but of course here in Monaco, you can't chuck it you can't chuck it down the inside like you can in some other circuits. It's all about finesse here in this track around this very tricky, challenging circuit. And I mean, chucking it in down the inside is essentially the opposite of finesse here. So I think Irish Potato realized that and realized it was going to be more of a mistake, but now gets the traction, he gets the overtake done, and there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Irish Root Potato up into P5, Real DC, excuse me, down in P6 now, as he falls down a position of the order, losing out to that position. But still getting a good finish here is the real DC. And if I'm looking here, Irish Root Potato, he's in P6, I mean, essentially neck and neck with his teammates. Just a little bit, P5 and P6 in the Drivers' Championship. So Irish Root Potato getting some nice points. We can try to close that gap up to his teammate for this battle of who's the true lead Mercedes driver, who has that number one spot here. But there we go. That's what we're seeing. Real DC just looking to snag some points as he's down in 19. No points on the board so far. But of course, getting a P6 in Monaco, that's a confidence booster if I've ever seen one, to snag that good haul of points. So we'll see how that goes. But still 10 laps to go in this championship. But now we've got Demort's. He's starting to close that gap up once again on Knight. It's down to under a second. Ooh, but Demort's takes a 3-second time penalty that will be added on to his time. Put it on the board as Irish Root Potato is sending a fastest lap. And now, I mean, Demort's still might be getting ahead of Knight here if he can keep that gap within 3 seconds. Looking at the penalties here, Knight has 6. Demort's has 3, so Fion behind them in a distance has 3, but Irish Root Potato, 15 seconds of time penalties. That is not boding well for the driver in P5 here in that Mercedes, as he might fall down the order. He's really gotta start building a gap here. Jordan, meanwhile, getting ahead of Dark, as Dark having to take a pit stop to get that wing changed. So a wing change for Dark sends him down into 8th position here. Not ideal, but Jordan, he's up to P7, and very crucially, he's a little bit far behind, but the only driver left who hasn't taken a penalty here. And Hartman now getting ahead of Dark, so it once again goes to show how much time is lost when you have to change that wing. The Red Bull of Hartman goes up into P8. So now we'll have to see. Dark is gonna have to play catch up now to try to close that gap and try to re-overtake the second Red Bull driver of Hartman. Meanwhile, D-Morts, he's playing catch up on Knight. The gap to around 0.6 of a second as Irish Sweet Potato sets another fastest lap of the Grand Prix. He's on a charge here, flying and trying to close up to Sophion, bringing that gap closer and closer. They're getting closer and closer together, ladies and gentlemen. We might see a battle here between the Mercedes and the McLaren by the end of this race. We're definitely seeing a battle between the Red Bull and the Alpine here, but it all comes down to the exit of these types of corners that you saw right there. D-Mort's getting a slight little bit of a tank slapper, fighting that dirty air. Knight, meanwhile, just clean sailing ahead, so he's able to hang on to that P2. And it just goes to show, like I've mentioned a couple times here already, how important track position is and how important it is to nail those crucial corner exits. And you can see D-Mort's fighting the car a little bit more now through these corners with the onboard. And, I mean, that's something that Knight is definitely not going to complain about here. But, I mean, of course, with 8 laps to go, it's still going to be it's still anybody's to play for. Anything can happen here because this is Monaco for you. It's a track that involves pure concentration for 39 laps out of the 39 laps, and not even you can't even just lose your laps of concentration for. You can't even lose it for half a lap, because that half a lap could be the difference between finishing the race and not finishing the race. You really got to be on the ball. And oh no, right as I was saying that, right then and there, that is the prime example. Maybe a slight lapse of concentration from D-Morts there, and that's right there, wing damage, and that is going to be a pit stop. And Knight, meanwhile, he can now smooth sail in P2, and I'm sure he's going to see now, if he hasn't heard already from the booth, that D-Morts has taken a pit stop. Now Knight very comfortably in P2 now on lap 32 out of 39, and I mean, of course, if I can switch my right choice here, Knight can very crucially make it to the end here on those intermediate tires. He's just got to nurse them a little bit and hope that they don't pop for him. Meanwhile, we've got a yellow flag. What happened here? That's Irish Sweet Potato. He's, oh no, oh, that's a very tricky spot as he resets the track. That was a little bit sketchy there as the real DC gets ahead. There is Nude Potato. But not ideal, and we're going to try to get a better view. Does he have wing damage on that car? You can hear the revs here. As can we get another view other than that one? Oh, it did not look like he's got wing damage, crucially. So I think it was just a little bit of a spin, but very crucially keeps that out of the wall. And no, he can continue on. It was just a heavy time loss there from Irish New Potato. Not great, but much better than what it could have been here in these the later stages of the race. But here we go. You can see Zuwil, he's still driving perfect. There's that Haas car coming through the casino section, and really, like, not much you can say other than a fantastic race from Zuwil so far. He's had pole position, led the race here from beginning to end, and essentially said, "Catch me if you can." And right now, nobody can. I mean, Knight, he's putting in a valiant effort, but just with the, I think he got a little bit, he got the short end of the stick with that earlier wing damage, like we saw. He had to pit early. He did a great job recovering up into P2, but I mean, if you're trying to catch up to a driver like Zuwil with the pace he had in Monaco, you can't be making a mistake, and you gotta not end up caught up in other drivers' mistakes as well, and that is exactly the reason why, because this gap is going to be very difficult to try to close up with how well Zuwil is driving here around this circuit. But here we are. You see the gaps here. The top 5 really have those gaps set up. There goes Irish Sweet Potato pitting. Hartman taking a pit stop as well, as they're both seemingly getting some wing changes, getting those fresh set of tires on, or fresher set of tires. But some of these drivers having taken quite a few stops. If we take a look here, Irish New Potato with 4 stops, Dark with 4 stops. They've essentially run out of intermediate tires. They're gonna have to put on a used sets here. So they might have some sets that have run a little bit less laps than what some of the others have. Like you can see, 2-lap-old intermediate tires for Irish New Potato. Hartman, meanwhile, he still has a fresh set for himself here as he gets out of the pit lane. So crucial for him as he's charging down. But there we have it. You can see everybody just running their own race, running the gaps, and it's going to come down to well, number one, who can finish, and number two, maybe penalties will play an effect. As you can see, Jordan, if he closes up maybe 3 seconds between now and the end of the race, that could be P6 with the penalties that Irish New Potato has. So I mean, it's not a battle on track here, but it's very much so something to watch out for as we're keeping an eye on the gaps, which of course in Monaco it's all about the gaps here on this circuit. But lap 35 out of 39 here. There is Zuwil coming through the casino section, and you know what? I'm gonna jump on board with Zuwil for a little bit. We'll watch his laps. We'll watch his laps here as he's running around and just see what he's doing. I'm sure he's absolutely he's flying here around this circuit, which is great, but it's got to be something he's doing to be able to just build that gap a little bit more. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll be taking notes here. I'm sure I will for the next time I have to run and race Monaco. But as he's heading towards this little chicane, you can see just who putting those tires right between that sausage curb. That right there is fantastic. That's a fantastic line steer through the swimming pool, and I mean he's just nailing his line steer. He's doing exactly what he has to do from what I can see. Nailing the exits, nailing the lines. We've got a yellow flag here in Sector 2, as that might be, that was one of the, I think that was Hartman, quite possibly. He's, yeah, you can see some end plate damage. He's really had to slow that Red Bull down to make the corner, and there's that yellow flag there just for Hartman having to slow that up. But very crucially, keeps that out of the wall. It might be, yeah, so that is going to be another pit stop for Hartman, as he's going to get that wing change one more time here at the end of the race. Try to make it to the end of the race here. But unfortunately for Jordan, those his tires he's on, the pace has fallen off just a little bit. He was unable at this point to close that gap up. He's just nursing that car to the end, trying to make it home in one piece, and I think he's going to settle for the points he can get here in P7. But you can see Dark, he's on a charge ever so slightly, trying to close up just a little bit here. But like I said, Will, lap 36 out of 39, just doing fantastic here on this track with the conditions. I mean, it's a dominant drive to say the least. And I mean, if we're looking at driver of the week candidates, as much as it's not your typical driver of the week in terms of, you know, starting from the back of the field and just overtaking left, right, and center. It ain't that type of driver of the week. But in terms of just absolute dominance, I mean, it's definitely a candidate, in my opinion, for a driver of the week here for Zuwil. Just with how he's driven. I mean, with the challenge that you have here at this circuit in Monaco. I mean, I'm repeating myself a little bit, but I just can't stress it enough. He's just dominance. There's no other way to put it for Zuwil, and I mean, he's definitely counting the laps. I'm sure, hoping looking forward to get to the end of it. But I'm sure he's been enjoying this race a little bit more than some of the other drivers here. But of course, I gotta hand it to Knight too. He had a decent qualifying, worked his way up the field, but had to take an early pit stop. Fell way down the order here, getting that wing change. But ever since then, it's just near perfect. He's been pretty perfect here. And if it wasn't for that one mistake there and that earlier pit stop, who knows? he could have been challenging Will for that P1, but still a good drive so far here. But of course, still a couple more laps to go. As you can see, Will around Razkaz, heading around the final corner here, and heading towards the line. He will be starting the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix here, lap 38 out of 39, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. Approaching the end of this Grand Prix, getting close to it. It's we'll see if he can nurse this car to the end, is Will, and if all these drivers can nurse the car. Because of course, when you get to this point of the race, near the end, you're starting to maybe feel confident, like, hey, I made it this far. I think I got this to the end. But of course, you can't be thinking that way, because that's when the mistakes happen. That's when you start. That's when the tires could be at their worst at the end of this. At the end of the race, and that's where the mistakes can happen. You've been focusing for 37, 38 laps now, and like I said, this is the race that you gotta be focused. You gotta be concentrated for all 39 laps of this Grand Prix. Because if you're only focused for laps 38 and 9/10, well, that 1/10 of a lap could be the difference between finishing the race and not finishing the race here. But you see the gaps. The real DC, though, he's closing ever so slightly to Sophion. It's a 2.2 second gap. We're not often we're seeing this, but there we go. We've got drivers next to each other on the track here, and as they're heading around the track to start what could be lap 38 out of 39 for themselves. Looking at the steering wheel, it is lap 38 out of 39. Will, meanwhile, he's already lapped them, so it's going to be their final lap of the Grand Prix. As they might only get one more lap around, but here for the real DC, it's him and Sophion. They've been around each other for the entirety of this race, and at this point, it might just come down to, can Sophion just keep his nose clean? Can he maybe not take a penalty between now and the end of the race on this quote unquote final lap, or can the real DC get a move done, close up enough to get an overtake done where he can? We'll see how it goes. But, that's not going to help. A little big tank slapper on the exit of that corner from the real DC. And I think that's going to do it here in that battle. Unless Sophion takes a corner cutting penalty, you can see very wise to not extend too much here. But here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The legend himself of Will around Monaco. The crazy drive, a beast of a drive, nurses the car home around the final corner. The only gripe, a 3-second time penalty, but it won't matter. Will wins the Monaco Grand Prix here in Division 2. Here, as you can see, Knight in P2. There was a car behind him, but you can see Demorts, the closest to him, is right behind, but he's approaching Razkaz himself. I think this is going to be the podium. Will in P1, and Knight around Razkaz now, around the final corner, nursing that car from falling down the order very early on, back to P2, a fantastic podium drive as he's just going to enjoy himself there just a little bit on track. He does get that P2, he does get the podium, and he does jump Nazareth in the championship for P2. Demorts, he's happy with his race. That's a podium for Demorts in the Red Bull as he gets P3. A fantastic drive. Sophion in 4th, Real DC in 5th, and Irish Shoe Potato in 6th. Jordan, a couple laps down here, crossing the line. He's going to get 7th place here with Dark around. Crossing the wall, crossing the line in style as clipped to the wall for good measure. Just saying, you know what? I've already gone through a couple front wings. What's one more here around Monaco? But there you have it. What a race in Monaco that was. Maybe not the most exciting race in terms of in terms of overtakes, although we did see some close battles. But I mean, the strategy, especially in the midway point, that got very exciting, at least for myself. And I mean, I do hope that those watching at home, we were able to do you justice for a good race here, as ISRL returns from our little 2-week hiatus here, our 2-week break period. And it was a fantastic race, a little bit of everything: dry quality, wet race, couple penalties, a lot of front wing changes. But at the end of the day, it is the Haas of Duil who is extending his lead in the championship with an absolute dominant drive. Like I said, the only thing that I can give a little tisk for, the only thing I can really take away from Duil is, really Duil? You took one time penalty? How dare you? But no, I'm kidding, of course. But a fantastic drive from P1 to a victory for Duil. Knight, like I said, after getting caught up into a bit of an incident early on, from 4th on the grid, falling down the grid, but a fantastic recovery drive up into 2nd. Demors from 3rd up into 5th. So Fion in 4th from 9th on the field. He and the real DC were next to each other for the entirety. There is the rest of the order as the time is ticking down. A fantastic race there. Ladies and gentlemen, I do hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Now, of course, we've got one more race here to go after this. It will be the Division 1 Championship. We're going to have a little bit of a break in between. Of course, the real-life IRL Mexican Grand Prix is starting in about half an hour's time. But as soon as that is over, as soon as the podium celebrations are over, give or take about 15-20 minutes or so, and we will be back in Monaco for the main event, Division 1, as they take their turn around Monaco. And you are not going to want to miss that. But until then, on behalf of everybody here at ISRL Esports, my name has been Fallen Monkeys, saying thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the Grand Prix, and we will see you all in just a few in just a couple hours here for Division 1. Enjoy your afternoon, your evening, your day, everyone. Until next time.